Alright, today my presentation is going to be on the challenge that was brought forth by Dr. Zerbad. And it was essentially to see if to see if it would be possible to video teleconference with multiple people from several different locations, and those locations would include an airport, on an airplane while in flight, and then a remote location somewhere, remote Africa, Southeast Asia, Australia maybe. And the last thing was it has to be cheap. So that was another thing that I kind of took into consideration while throwing this together. Okay, first thing that we would need is the right phone. I'm sure a lot of people know there are like two different competing technologies. There's CDMA, which is pretty common in this country, and there's GSM, which is used predominantly in the rest of the world. We do have GSM phones here. T-Mobile and AT&T use GSM technology. The problem is, if you have a CDM phone, you can't use it in a lot of other places. So essentially, we need a phone that can use both, and it also has to have Wi-Fi, because by using Wi-Fi, you could actually end up saving a lot of money over the long run. And it also needs to be a smartphone too, because I'm going to use Skype. I thought that would be like the cheapest way to do it. One thing to consider about if we wanted to use our own phone, if you actually took your own AT&T phone and used it in a foreign country, you could be charged up to $20 a meg for data. So you can imagine how quickly you could rack up a ginormous bill. The phone that I chose was the Moto E. It's $129. It's an Android phone. It's a world phone. It has the capabilities of just about any modern phone. The only drawbacks is that it has kind of a small screen. So that's the phone that I chose, and that's completely unlocked, so you can take it and use it with any carrier in any country. Alright, and here I have a map that shows data costs. So this would kind of give us an idea of how much we would be spending depending on what country we're in. You can also see there are a few countries here where there is no data, so those countries would be pretty much out of the question unless there's Wi-Fi. So you can also see it's interesting that we pretty much pay the most in the world for our data on our phones. And here I have a world map that shows the presence of data networks. So you can kind of also see here, where we could go, what our limitations are as far as where we have data networks. And this is actually a mix of Wi-Fi and mobile networks. And this next map is Wi-Fi and free Wi-Fi. There's not a lot, but if you see red, that's free Wi-Fi. So you can see there are a lot of limitations on Wi-Fi as well. So if you wanted to save money, you could travel to areas where there is free Wi-Fi. Okay, when Wi-Fi isn't an option, so as we can see, there are going to be times when you won't be able to use Wi-Fi. So the idea is you're going to have to buy a local SIM card. Yeah, well, it's just a phone in his ear.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're in the middle of absolute nowhere and you don't have Wi-Fi, the best thing to do is go to a newsstand and get a SIM card from a local person and put that in the phone that you already have. That way you only spend...
So the model uses something.
Exactly. Uses CDMA and a SIM card, so you've got options. And it's super cheap compared to $20 a meg if you're going to keep your AT&T and international roam. Okay, and once we're connected, whether we use Wi-Fi or whether we use data, the thing that we would use would be Skype. Okay, and now the three different scenarios that we have. The airport is going to be easy. There's Wi-Fi in pretty much every international airport, so that's not going to be an issue at all. And because you have a dual band phone, if you wanted to, if you're at the airport, you could just use your carrier's signal at the time. Like if you had the prepaid Moto E, you could just use that signal while you're at the airport. Or
For example, Minneapolis Airport.
yeah, sure, yeah, definitely. But there's also, I mean, there are a lot of different services at a lot of different airports. Boingo, I think, is one. If you want to get on Wi-Fi, that's an alternative. So. Oh, and also probably a good time. You can see there's charge stations and stuff. Get all your batteries charged up and everything. Okay, and in-plane Wi-Fi. I checked into it, and United has it. And here's a map that shows everywhere that is covered in the world for their flight. So pretty much anywhere you want to go except Antarctica, I think you're going to be fine. So
What's the
that
charge of their plane?
the charge of it, that I didn't see what the charge is.
That's of it.
Right, I would imagine it's going to be expensive, but I don't think there's a way around it. I think since you're on the plane, that's
Right.
unless you wanted to go with a satellite phone, which I looked into that, and that is just ridiculously expensive. So, yeah, that would be pretty much the only option. It is limited sometimes by like storms and stuff, because it's satellite. So I don't know, it depends on how high up you are, or electricity can affect it maybe. All right, and the last leg here is remote connectivity. And we kind of talked about that. You know, there's either Wi-Fi, and we know where the Wi-Fi is, and where there isn't Wi-Fi, data, get a local SIM card, and with that, you could pretty much get online and chat with anyone, pretty much anywhere. And there's also the option to tether. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, but you know, you really wouldn't even need a smartphone if you're going to tether. And kind of like this guy, you could be, you know, hundreds of miles from anyone else. And as long as you are connecting to a tower and tethered to your laptop, you could actually use your laptop to Skype. So,
So if you're connecting to a tower,
mhm.
the tower is in the US.
No, you'd be connecting, remember you buy like the local SIM card?
So
So you're connecting to local networks.
And local need for customer have access, not just the phone access.
Right, yeah, I didn't really even look at like phone access, although I'm assuming that if, you know, if there's data that you can probably talk to.
So the SIM card that you get has to be data access,
Yes, yep.
which local.
Yep, and there was a map that shows exactly how much it costs by country and which countries don't have data at all, which there are quite a few. Okay, and the last part is if you are in a remote area and you run into some problems, it's nice to know that you've got your Moto, you can actually break it apart and fashion a weapon so that you could catch your dinner with it or something. I mean, I also saw another thing, we can short out your phone's battery to start a fire. So, it's good to have options.
That's a good thing you
Yeah.
can do.
I'm just going to stop.